How does a nation recover when its highest leader is bought by a drug lord? The question pierced through headlines like a gunshot the night former Mexican president Enrique Peña Nieto was accused of taking a staggering $100 million bribe from Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. Cameras flashed, crowds gathered, and whispers of betrayal swept from Mexico City to Washington. It wasn't just a scandal, it was an earthquake that exposed the rotting core of an entire political order. Reuters confirmed that the allegation first surfaced during El Chapo's 2019 trial in Brooklyn, where Colombian trafficker Alex Cifuentes testified that the payment was delivered as Peña Nieto prepared to take office. The Guardian reported that the deal was brokered in exchange for protection, proof that cartel power had long since merged with Mexico's political elite. Official denials came fast, but the damage was irreversible. In the courtroom, the story sounded like fiction, but in Mexico's streets, it matched a grim reality. One where governors, generals, and judges live under cartel payrolls. DW described the nation as a democracy haunted by criminal sovereignty, where corruption runs deeper than the oil beneath its soil. Under President Donald Trump's renewed border doctrine, the U.S. now treats that corruption as a national security threat. Intelligence from Defense News revealed joint task forces quietly mapping the cartel's financial web through Miami shell companies and offshore accounts. Washington's patience had run thin. No longer would America watch from the sidelines as billions in fentanyl profits fueled political campaigns south of the Rio Grande. Jane's Defense Weekly analysts noted that cartels now possess military-grade drones and encrypted networks rivaling insurgent groups in the Middle East. The parallels are haunting. In Ukraine, hidden oligarch networks once fed Moscow's ambitions. In Iran, the Revolutionary Guards built empires through smuggling. In China, criminal capital funds political loyalty. Everywhere, corruption blurs the line between government and gangster. For Mexicans, the betrayal was personal. Farmers in Sinaloa spoke to BBC News of lost sons, vanished daughters, and local mayors gunned down for refusing the offer. One woman said her family had paid protection money since she was a child, and it still didn't protect us. Now, with Trump demanding full transparency and threatening economic sanctions, the hemisphere faces a new reckoning. How far will the United States go to crush corruption when it festers just beyond its own border? And how much sovereignty can Mexico claim when its leaders sell their souls for cash and silence? Night falls over Mexico City, but the real power glows elsewhere, in fortified ranches, underground vaults, and military compounds where loyalty is measured in gold and blood. How deep does the corruption go when generals dine with narcos and politicians salute the men who kill their rivals? As BBC News reported, the testimony that followed El Chapo's trial painted a chilling portrait of a country ruled by its own shadows. Alex Cifuentes' words cut through decades of denial. Millions in bribes flowed to police commanders, ministers, and even military officers who ensured El Chapo's shipments reached American cities untouched. Reuters later confirmed that cartel payments bought not just protection, but silence. Silence from the very institutions sworn to defend the Republic. According to Defense News analysts, cartel syndicates such as Sinaloa and CJNG, Cartel de Jalisco Nueva Generación, operated like private armies. Their fleets of armored convoys, encrypted radios, and US-made rifles rivaled the capabilities of small nations. Intelligence leaks revealed a staggering detail. Between 2010 and 2024, over $12 million in direct payments were traced to active-duty Mexican officers. They're no longer gangs, one Pentagon source told Janes. They are a parallel state. President Trump, aware of the mounting threat, had ordered a sweeping intelligence audit, linking cartel infiltration in Mexico to fentanyl flows killing 200 Americans daily. Al Jazeera warned that this convergence of narco power and state complicity represented a hybrid sovereignty crisis, similar to Lebanon's Hezbollah or Russia's Wagner Group, armed networks with political protection. Globally, the pattern repeats. In eastern Ukraine, Moscow's private militias blur the line between soldier and mercenary. In Iran, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps runs oil and drug smuggling routes while shaping foreign policy. And in Asia, Beijing's triad-linked networks launder funds through Hong Kong and Macau. The result is the same: governments captured from within, power bought with vice. In Mexico, this unholy alliance left a trail of corpses. Journalists exposing cartel-linked officials vanished without a trace. Mayors who resisted were executed in public squares. Families buried their dead in silence, afraid of becoming the next warning. DW described the phenomenon as governance by terror, where the message is simple: obedience ensures survival. Washington's concern is not only moral, it's strategic. Every dollar that strengthens cartels weakens U.S. influence across Latin America. As The Guardian wrote, the longer Mexico's democracy bleeds, the louder the question echoes in Washington. At what point does corruption become a declaration of war? And so, the stage was set. While Mexico's leaders traded accusations and denials, another figure from the shadows prepared to face justice. A man who once sat at the same table as El Chapo, who bribed officials by the dozen, and who may now decide whether Mexico's truth finally comes out. His name? Ismael El Mayo Zambada. When loyalty is built on bribes and bullets, can a confession ever clean the bloodstains of a nation? It was a gray morning in Brooklyn when Ismael El Mayo Zambada, the last living architect of the Sinaloa cartel, entered the same courthouse where El Chapo once fell. Cameras flashed as he shuffled forward, his gray beard and limp a reminder of the empire he once ruled. For decades, he had been the ghost behind the curtain, too cautious to be caught, too connected to be betrayed. But this time, the ghost was cornered. Reuters confirmed that Zambada faced 17 federal charges, including trafficking, homicide, and conspiracy, each linked to the deaths of thousands on both sides of the border. U.S. prosecutors left one chilling possibility open: the death penalty. Yet, as The Guardian noted, the deeper battle wasn't about punishment, it was about what he might reveal. In the courtroom, Zambada spoke quietly but deliberately, describing a network of generals, mayors, and businessmen who took his money. Jane's Defense Weekly reported that his organization had spent over $50 million annually on bribery, ensuring military cooperation and political protection. One officer, he said, refused a $10 million offer not because of integrity, but because of personal hatred for El Chapo. That detail revealed the rot wasn't just moral, it was systemic. DW analysts drew parallels to Russia's oligarch mafia nexus, where wealth buys immunity, and Iran's smuggling elites who profit from sanctions. Like them, Zambada's empire blurred the boundaries of legality, blending crime and politics until they were indistinguishable. His operations stretched from Guerrero's jungles to Chicago's suburbs, shielded by men in uniforms who swore allegiance to the flag and the peso. In Washington, President Trump's advisors viewed the trial as an opportunity and a warning. Defense News reported that the Pentagon had begun redrawing its security doctrine for North America, calling for active deterrence operations along the southern border, drone surveillance, cyber disruption of cartel finances, and special forces cooperation with vetted Mexican units. For the White House, Zambada's fall symbolized a shift. Organized crime was no longer a law enforcement issue, but a counterterrorism priority. Yet even this tightening grip carried diplomatic risk. Al Jazeera pointed out that Mexican officials feared Zambada's testimony could implicate active politicians, possibly even figures in President Claudia Scheinbaum's administration. The irony was cruel. As Mexico's new leader promised reform, the ghosts of her predecessors were still bleeding through court transcripts in New York. For ordinary Mexicans, the trial reignited a forgotten hope that maybe, finally, someone would speak truth to power. Outside the courthouse, protesters held photos of missing relatives, chanting for justice that never came at home. One sign read, "If America gives us truth, let it also give us peace." Across the border, Americans watched as their own fentanyl crisis deepened, realizing that every bribe Zambada paid had a body attached to it: a student, a veteran, a child lost to addiction. The courtroom lights dimmed as the day ended, but one question lingered. Would Zambada's confession bring justice, or simply expose how unpunishable Mexico's corruption truly is? The storm broke over Mexico City just days after Zambada's testimony. Lightning cracked above the National Palace as President Claudia Scheinbaum faced a nation unraveling. She had promised peace through compassion. Abrazos, no balazos. Hugs, not bullets. But what happens when the hugs run out and the bullets keep coming? BBC News reported that by late 2024, Mexico's homicide rate had reached its highest in modern history. In cities like Acapulco and Culiacan, entire police departments were on cartel payrolls. Reuters documented that several governors and mayors had disappeared after refusing to cooperate with local bosses. For many Mexicans, Scheinbaum's government symbolized paralysis. A president paralyzed by fear, ideology, or both. Her soft hand policy, designed to tackle inequality and crime simultaneously, collapsed under the weight of relentless violence. DW described it as a social program conducted in a war zone, while Al Jazeera called it a miscalculation that surrendered sovereignty. Cartels no longer feared the state. They had become the state. When President Donald Trump called Scheinbaum to propose joint operations and limited U.S. strikes against cartel compounds, she refused. Sovereignty is sacred, she declared on national television. Yet Washington insiders, cited by Defense News, said Trump's patience had reached its breaking point. Classified Pentagon documents revealed plans for drone surveillance corridors and precision operations along Mexico's northern belt. Sinaloa, Michoacan, Guerrero, the cartel heartlands. The White House viewed it as containment, not invasion. "We're protecting American lives," Trump said in a statement echoed by Reuters. But to Mexico's leadership, it was humiliation, a reminder that their sovereignty now existed at the mercy of their northern neighbor. Jane's Defense Weekly analysts warned that Scheinbaum's stance risked alienating the United States at a moment when Washington was reshaping its military commitments globally. In Ukraine, American weapons sustained Kyiv's resistance. In the Middle East, U.S. drones tracked Iranian proxies. In the Pacific, naval deterrence held China in check. Mexico, they said, could become the next front, a silent theater of America's hybrid war. Inside Mexico, chaos spread faster than reform. DW reported that over 900 civilians were killed in Sinaloa since September. Mothers, students, police officers. One mother told The Guardian she no longer recognized her country. "We live between the army and the cartels. Both say they protect us. Neither does." For Scheinbaum, the political isolation was complete. Senator Lily Tellez, once her ally, accused her government on Fox Noticias of colluding with the CJNG cartel, claiming that campaign funds had been soaked in narco money. Al Jazeera's analysis noted that her furious response, threatening prosecution against Tellez, only confirmed public suspicion that power now served silence. As bodies piled and alliances fractured, a grim realization took hold. The Mexican state no longer governed. It merely negotiated with its executioners. If a president cannot distinguish between mercy and surrender, can the nation she leads still be called free? It began with a single order from the Oval Office: designate them as terrorists. The ink was barely dry on President Donald Trump's executive order when the United States officially reclassified the world's most powerful drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. Overnight, Mexico's criminal networks were no longer just traffickers. They were now enemies of the American state. Reuters reported that the declaration gave Washington unprecedented powers to pursue cartel leaders anywhere on Earth. U.S. Special Forces could now track, detain, or eliminate targets without waiting for foreign approval. Trump called it a war on terror at our doorstep. The Pentagon called it Operation Iron Veil. According to Defense News, 2 massive national defense corridors were established along the southern border, spanning hundreds of miles and packed with surveillance drones, radar, and armored patrols. Thousands of active-duty troops were deployed. This isn't just border security, a senior officer told Jane's Defense Weekly. It's preemptive containment. The Guardian's coverage described a dramatic shift in tone. Diplomacy had given way to deterrence. Trump's doctrine sought to restore America's global prestige by proving that even neighboring corruption would face the full weight of U.S. military resolve. The message is simple, one advisor told DW. If Washington can neutralize terror networks in the Middle East, it can neutralize cartels in the Western Hemisphere. But this counterstrike doctrine triggered shockwaves far beyond the Americas. Al Jazeera noted that both Beijing and Moscow condemned the move as unilateral militarization, comparing it to preemptive strikes used in Iraq and Syria. Iran's state media warned that the US was setting a precedent for border invasions under the pretext of terrorism. The geopolitical parallels were unmistakable. In Ukraine, US reconnaissance drones watched Russian columns the same way they now tracked cartel convoys in Michoacan. In the Strait of Hormuz, US naval forces targeted Iranian weapon smugglers. In the Gulf of Mexico, they mapped cartel shipping lanes. Across the Pacific, Chinese state media accused Washington of exporting chaos. Still, inside America, support was overwhelming. Families of fentanyl victims flooded Capitol Hill demanding action. "Our children are dying every day," one father told Reuters. "If Mexico can't stop them, we must." Behind closed doors, Trump's team weighed an even more radical step: covert strikes on Mexican soil, a classified plan reportedly greenlit for contingency use. Defense analysts said these would mirror counter-terrorism raids in Afghanistan, using precision drones and small, fast response teams. The plan, however, remained officially unacknowledged. Scheinbaum's reaction was defiant, but brittle. "Sovereignty is not for sale," she declared. Yet The Guardian quoted leaked Mexican intelligence reports suggesting panic within her administration. Fear not only of US intervention, but of what American investigations might expose. For Washington, the moral line was clear. No nation, however proud, could claim sovereignty while cartels ruled its people. For Mexico, it was a nightmare reborn, the specter of foreign boots on its soil. As dawn broke over the Rio Grande, US Reaper drones lifted silently into the sky, their sensors fixed southward. The world watched, waiting for the next move in a war no one had officially declared. If defending freedom means crossing borders, how far will America go before it crosses a line of its own? It began as a routine Senate session and ended in chaos, broadcast live across Mexico. As the national anthem played, lawmakers erupted into shoving, shouting, and blows. One senator's microphone was cut mid-speech. Another swung his fist in rage. Cameras caught it all. Democracy collapsing in real time. Reuters reported that the fight broke out after opposition leader Alejandro Alito Moreno demanded renewed cooperation with Washington and publicly endorsed Trump's anti-cartel campaign. Senate President Gerardo Fernandez Noroña, a staunch ally of President Scheinbaum, tried to silence him. When Moreno refused, the scuffle ignited, the physical manifestation of a country split between defiance and desperation. DW described the brawl as a symbol of Mexico's disintegration, where the state no longer governs, it merely survives. Lawmakers traded accusations of treason, while cartel-funded militias tightened their grip on entire provinces. The Guardian added that as politicians fought in marble halls, gunfire echoed in the barrios. Outside, protesters filled the streets of Culiacan, Guadalajara, and Monterrey. Many waved US flags, pleading for Trump to intervene. "Help us," one woman cried into a BBC camera. "We're dying every day. Our government protects the killers." Her words echoed through Washington, where officials debated how far American aid could go before becoming occupation. According to Al Jazeera, over 900 civilians were killed in Sinaloa since September alone. These weren't cartel enforcers, they were farmers, taxi drivers, teachers caught between crossfire. DW reported morgues overflowing, children orphaned, and entire towns emptied overnight. Mexico's famed hospitality turned to fear. Citizens whispered that the border to the United States was no longer a divide. It was a lifeline. Defense news analysts warned that if the crisis continued, the collapse could spill northward, destabilizing trade and sparking mass migration unseen since 2020. Trump, facing mounting pressure from border states, vowed decisive action. "America will defend itself," he said, "and protect those who still believe in law and order." Yet beyond the political theater lay a deeper truth, one that experts from Jane's and The Guardian both emphasized. Corruption had not only hollowed Mexico's government, it had infected the idea of governance itself. When citizens fear both the police and the cartel, justice becomes a memory. The parallels stretched across the world. In Ukraine, war blurred the line between state defense and survival. In Gaza and Tehran, sovereignty was claimed amid ruins. In Taiwan, it trembled under threat. And now, in Mexico, sovereignty meant dying quietly, or asking a foreign power for salvation. As Senate chaos replayed across every television screen, one question haunted both nations. Can freedom survive when law collapses just beyond America's border? For Mexico, it is an existential question. For Washington, it is a test of resolve. And for the world, it is a warning that corruption, once ignored, becomes contagion. The lights in the Senate chamber dimmed, but the echoes of that night refused to fade. How many more lives will be lost before nations remember that sovereignty without justice is nothing more than an illusion? The saga of Mexico's corruption, from Peña Nieto's bribe to Scheinbaum's unraveling presidency, reveals a nation devoured by the same cartels it once vowed to destroy. Under President Donald Trump, the United States has transformed its southern border into a military frontier, declaring a global war on narco-terrorism. But as cartels evolve into quasi-states, the battle is no longer just Mexico's. It's a test of whether democracy itself can withstand organized corruption. Behind courtroom confessions and Senate chaos lies a deeper tragedy. Millions of innocent Mexicans trapped between two powers, one that cannot protect them and another that may no longer wait for permission to try. From Washington to Culiacan, from the Pentagon to the streets, the question now reverberates across continents. Will sovereignty or survival prevail? And as the border drones hum under a crimson dawn, one truth remains. Corruption may begin in secret, but it always ends in daylight.